Harlem never truly slept. Even at midnight, the streets breathed, sirens in the distance, laughter leaking from basement clubs, footsteps echoing between brick walls that seemed too much blood to be surprised anymore. Leon Crown, Carter knew those sound the way other men knew prayers. He'd grown up with them, survived by listening to what most people ignored. The click of a gun being cocked wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. Leon froze in the doorway of his apartment. Tuesday night, October 3rd, 1951, 11:58 p.m. His coat still smelled of rain and cigarette smoke. His knuckles ached, not from fear, but from the work he'd done an hour earlier to keep Harlem balanced. One wrong move, one wrong deal, and bodies followed. Leon had learned how to prevent that. Slowly, he raised his eyes. Ruth stood in the living room, barefoot, her coat tossed over a chair, her hands trembling around a revolver that didn't belong to her, but had been under Leon's bed for years. The barrel pointed directly at his chest. Leon's hand instinctively moved toward his waist, then stopped halfway. He didn't draw, didn't blink, didn't step back. He looked at her face instead. Her eyes were red, swollen, not weak, exhausted. The kind of tired that came from holding fear too long without letting it breathe. "Ruth," Leon said softly, not pleading. "Careful, put it down." She didn't. Her voice cracked when she spoke. "Are they going to kill me?" For words, they hit harder than any bullet Leon had ever dodged. For weeks, he'd known something was wrong. The silence when she came home, the way she checked reflections in store windows, the phone calls that ended when he picked up. Leon took a slow breath and raised both hands. "Talk to me?" Ruth swallowed. "A man followed me from the theater tonight. Didn't hide it. Wanted me to know." Her grip tightened. "Yesterday someone went through my purse. Nothing stolen. Just touched." Leon felt anger rise, cold and sharp, but he crushed it down. Anger made mistakes. And tonight, mistakes would get her killed. "Can you protect me?" she asked. This time, her voice didn't shake. Leon stared at her. He could lie. Most men in his position would. He could promise guards, money, safe houses, threats whispered in the right ears. He had the power to make men disappear before breakfast. But Leon Carter had built his name on one rule: never lie to the people you love. "No," he said. The word landed heavy. Ruth's breath caught. "No. I can't protect you the way you're asking," Leon said quietly. "Not forever." The gun didn't lower. "Then why am I here?" she asked. "Why did I move into a life where every shadow wants me gone?" Leon took one step forward. Slow. "Because running won't save you," he said. "They already know you matter." Her eyes filled. "So I'm just waiting to die?" "No." Leon took another step. Now he was close enough to see the pulse racing in her throat. "You're going to become someone they're afraid of." Ruth blinked. "What?" "Right now, you're seen as my weakness," Leon said. "That makes you a target. But if you become your own danger, they'll think twice." She let out a shaky laugh. "I'm an actress, Leon. I memorize lines. I sing. I pretend." "You survived growing up poor," he replied. "You came to Harlem alone. You built a name without asking permission." He met her eyes. "You already know how to survive. I'll just teach you how to finish the lesson." The gun lowered an inch. Silence filled the room. Thick, heavy, alive. "And if they still come," she whispered. Leon didn't hesitate. "Then I stand with you. Every time. Even if it kills me." Her hands finally gave in. The gun clattered onto the table. Ruth crossed the room and pressed her forehead into his chest. "Then teach me," she said, "because I won't be afraid anymore." Outside, Harlem kept breathing. And in that apartment, something changed. Not a man, not a woman, a partnership. Before Harlem feared Leon Crown Carter, Harlem ignored him. That was a mistake. Leon wasn't born into power. There were no silver spoons, no famous last names whispered in back rooms. He grew up on West 131st Street, in an apartment where the heat worked only when winter was already over. and the walls were thin enough to hear arguments that ended in sirens. His mother cleaned houses downtown. His father disappeared early, not into prison, not into a grave, just gone. Like many men Harlem swallowed whole. Leon learned young that noise attracted trouble, so he stayed quiet. While other boys fought to prove themselves, Leon watched. He memorized faces, learned who paid on time, who borrowed and lied, who smiled too much. By 16, he knew which corners belonged to which crews, and which ones were about to change hands. Harlem in the late 1930s wasn't ruled by kings. It was ruled by tension. Italian outfits wanted the numbers. Irish gangs wanted the docks. Local crews wanted respect, but didn't have the muscle to keep it. Leon didn't choose sides. He chose timing. His first real move wasn't violent. It was smart. A policy banker on Lenox Avenue kept getting robbed, not by rivals, but by his own runners. Leon proved it quietly, handing over names, numbers, and schedules. The banker paid Leon not for protection, but for truth. Word spread. Leon Carter knew things. By 25, he was arranging sit-downs without ever sitting at the head of the table. He didn't threaten. He didn't shout. He let men talk themselves into bad decisions, then charged them to fix the mess. Violence followed him anyway. It always does. The first body connected to Leon was a man named Rufus Hale, a local hitter who thought quiet men were weak. Rufus slapped Leon in front of witnesses over a disputed envelope. Leon didn't react. That night, Rufus was found alive but broken behind a closed billiard hall, both hands shattered. No witnesses, no rumors, just a lesson that spread faster than fear. From then on, men stopped touching Leon. They started listening. By the time the 1940s arrived, Harlem needed order. Too many crews, too much noise, too many outsiders trying to tax streets they didn't bleed on. Leon stepped into the gap, not as a boss, as a balance. He let crews operate as long as civilians weren't touched. No shaking down church money. No drugs near schools. No violence in clubs where families gathered. Men laughed at first. Then they noticed something strange. When Leon made a call, problems ended. When Leon warned someone once, there was never a second warning. And when outsiders pushed too hard, they vanished just long enough to understand where they stood. By the time Ruth met him in 1950, Leon was already called Crown, not because he demanded it, but because everyone else bowed without realizing they were doing it. Ruth didn't know all of this at first. She only saw a man who listened when others talked over her. A man who didn't brag, didn't flash money, didn't pretend danger was romance. But the streets knew. And when Ruth moved into Leon's apartment, the streets noticed. To enemies, she wasn't a woman. She was leverage. Within days, whispers started. Crown's got a soft spot. Crown's human after all. Find the girl, you find the weakness. Leon heard the rumors before Ruth felt the fear. That's why he started watching her routes. That's why men followed her without touching her. That's why threats arrived half-formed, testing boundaries. Because Harlem was waiting to see something. Would Leon Carter protect his power? Or protect his woman? What Harlem didn't understand yet was this. Leon never separated the two. By teaching Ruth to survive, he wasn't risking his throne. He was reinforcing it. Because fear built on one man breaks when that man falls. Fear built on two people, bonded, honest, prepared, lasts. And somewhere in the shadows, men were already planning their next move. They thought Ruth was the beginning of Leon's end. They were wrong. She was the beginning of something worse. Harlem noticed the silence first. For weeks after the rumors started, nothing happened. No threats, no messages, no men following Ruth home. That was never a good sign. Leon Crown Carter knew it too. Silence in Harlem didn't mean peace. It meant planning. He didn't tell Ruth everything. Not because he didn't trust her, but because fear works better when it arrives unexpectedly. Still, he began changing small things. Different routes, different times. Men posted where they wouldn't be noticed. Shoeshine boys, newspaper vendors, delivery drivers who lingered too long. Ruth felt the shift before she understood it. People looked at her differently now, not with desire, with calculation. One afternoon in late March 1951, Ruth left rehearsal early. Her throat was sore, her head pounding. She decided to walk instead of taking the train. Fresh air usually helped. That's when the car slowed beside her. Black Ford. Clean. Too clean. It matched her pace for half a block. Ruth didn't panic. Leon had taught her better than that. She stopped at a fruit stand, pretended to examine oranges. The car rolled forward, parked half a street ahead, engine still running. Two men inside, waiting. Ruth turned down a side street instead, one she wasn't supposed to use anymore. That was her first mistake. The second was thinking they wanted to scare her. They didn't. Halfway down the block, footsteps echoed behind her. Calm, unrushed. Mississippi. She didn't turn. Miss, you dropped something. Ruth stopped, turned slowly. Two men now, not the ones from the car. These were different, older, better dressed, Italian, the kind who didn't need to shout to be obeyed. I didn't drop anything, Ruth said evenly. One smiled. That's all right. We just need a minute of your time. I don't have it. She stepped back. The alley behind her narrowed. Too late. The second man reached for her arm. Ruth reacted before fear could catch up. She twisted hard, drove her elbow back. Not wildly, but exactly where Leon had shown her. The man grunted, surprise more than hurt. The first man cursed. That was the moment Ruth knew this wasn't about intimidation. This was about removal. She reached into her purse. The smile vanished instantly. Easy, the first man said. Let's not. Ruth pulled the gun out anyway. Not shaking, not screaming. Pointed. Leon had told her once. The gun isn't power. The calm is. You touch me again, she said, voice steady. And one of you doesn't walk away. The men froze. They hadn't expected resistance. Certainly not discipline. Put it down, the second man said, but his voice lacked confidence. Ruth didn't move. Behind them, a door slammed. A voice shouted. A crowd was forming, slowly, unintentionally, the way Harlem crowds always did. Witnesses. The men exchanged a look. This wasn't the plan. They backed away, hands visible. This isn't over, the first one said. Ruth nodded once. I know. They disappeared around the corner. Ruth stood there for 10 seconds longer than necessary. Then she turned and walked, not fast, not slow, to the nearest safe place. Leon arrived 7 minutes later. He didn't ask if she was hurt. He didn't shout. He looked at her hands. Steady. Did you point it? He asked. Yes. Did you fire? No. He nodded once. That's my girl. That night, Leon made calls. Not angry ones. Precise ones. He learned the names within an hour. Learned who sent them within 2. Learned who approved it by morning. This wasn't a random crew. This was a test authorized from outside Harlem. And Leon understood the rule of power better than most. If you let the first test slide, the next one is bloodier. So he didn't respond immediately. He waited. 3 days later, one of the men who approached Ruth woke up in a hospital bed with no memory of how he got there and a permanent limp. The other never made it to the hospital. He vanished for 48 hours. Then he was returned, alive, barely, delivered to his employer's doorstep with a simple message carved into the wooden crate he arrived in. She is not the door. She is the lock. After that, the silence returned. But this time it was different. This time it was respect. Ruth noticed a change before Leon did. Men stepped aside when she walked. Conversation stopped. Eyes dropped, not out of fear, but acknowledgement. She wasn't just Crown's woman anymore. She was Crown's line, and no one crossed it twice. The meeting was never supposed to include her. That was the first mistake. The sit-down was arranged quietly, the way serious conversations always were in Harlem. No paper trails, no phone calls, just a chain of trusted mouths passing a time and a place. Tuesday night, after closing, upstairs room of a private social club on 142nd Street. Leon, Crown, Carter arrived alone. At least, that's what it looked like. Men inside the club counted 3 exits for armed guards, and a table already crowded with faces that carried history. Italian suits. Local operators. One representative from Brooklyn who didn't belong, but had enough backing to sit there anyway. They expected Crown. They didn't expect Ruth. She walked in beside him, calm, composed, wearing a dark coat and gloves like this was church. Not a negotiation between men who had buried bodies with their own hands. Conversation stopped. One of the Italians laughed softly. This ain't a family dinner. Leon didn't sit yet. She stays, he said. That wasn't the arrangement. Leon finally pulled out a chair for Ruth. Then he sat beside her. That's the arrangement now. Silence. Not anger. Calculation. Everyone in that room understood what this meant. If Crown was willing to bring her here, he wasn't hiding her. He was declaring her. The man from Brooklyn leaned back. This about the little incident on Lennox? Ruth felt Leon tense beside her. She spoke before he could. It wasn't little, she said evenly. And it wasn't an incident. It was a decision. Every eye snapped to her. Women didn't speak in rooms like this. Not unless they were being spoken about. The Brooklyn man smiled thinly. You talk confident for someone who needed a gun to walk home. Ruth met his eyes. You talk brave for someone who sent men instead of coming himself. The room went cold. Leon didn't stop her. That was a moment they all understood. This wasn't defiance. This was permission. You cross a line, one of the older Harlem operators said carefully. Sending outsiders after a civilian. She's not a civilian, Brooklyn snapped. Ruth leaned forward slightly. Then neither are your men, she said. And one of them learned that lesson already. No shouting. No threats. Just truth laid flat on the table. Leon finally spoke. Harlem has rules. You break them, we respond. You test us, we correct you. This meeting is a correction. Brooklyn scoffed. You think bringing her here makes you stronger? Leon didn't answer. Ruth did. No, she said. It makes you uncertain. And uncertainty is expensive. A few men shifted in their seats. Ruth continued, voice calm but sharp. You wanted leverage. You thought fear would do it. But fear only works when it flows one direction. You pointed it at me, now it points back. The Brooklyn man slammed his hand on the table. You threatening us? Ruth didn't blink. No, I'm explaining consequences. Leon watched her now, not protectively, but proudly. An older Italian cleared his throat. This is getting messy, he said. We don't need war over pride. Then control your people, Ruth said. Because next time, I won't wait for permission. That did it. The Brooklyn rep stood. You're out of your depth, he said to Ruth. And you're making him sloppy. Leon stood too. She's making me honest. That line ended the meeting. Not with violence. With understanding. Brooklyn backed out Harlem. Within a week. No announcement. No apology. Just absence. After that night, Ruth's name traveled faster than Leon's ever had. Not whispered as a weakness. Spoken as a warning. She wasn't loud. She wasn't reckless. She was precise. And Harlem understood precision. That was the night Ruth stopped being protected by Crown's shadow. She became the shadow. Power doesn't announce itself when it leaves. It slips, quietly, like a shadow changing direction. Ruth felt it before anyone else did. Not in threats, not in gunfire, in silence. Messages came later than usual. Meetings were shorter. Men who once held doors now avoided eye contact. Leon noticed too, but he interpreted it differently. They're adjusting, he said. That meeting scared them. Ruth shook her head. No, she replied. It educated them. Education was dangerous. Because educated men didn't panic. They planned. The first sign came on a Thursday morning. A runner didn't show. By evening, word spread that a shipment had been intercepted on the east side. Not by police, not by Italians, but by locals. Harlem boys. Faces Ruth recognized. That was new. Harlem didn't move against itself without permission. Leon was furious. Someone's lying, he snapped. I'll find who. Ruth stayed calm. Someone's listening, she corrected, and someone's talking. That night, she retraced conversations in her mind. The sit-down, the side glances, the men who asked too many questions and nodded too quickly. Then she landed on the truth. Not betrayal for money, betrayal for survival. Because fear had changed addresses. The name people whispered wasn't Leon's anymore. It was hers. And not everyone wanted to live under a woman's certainty. The next day, Ruth did something no one expected. She disappeared. No warning. No explanation. Leon tore Harlem apart looking for her. Checking safe houses, trusted friends, every place she could have gone. Nothing. That was the point. Ruth didn't leave Harlem. She left visibility. She moved quietly, staying with people who owed her favors from before Leon's rise. Old women, shop owners, men who didn't talk because talking had never saved them. From there, she watched, listened, and learned who thought she was temporary. It took 3 days. On the 4th, the name surfaced. Eli Numbers Graves. A quiet man. Too quiet. He ran books, managed routes, knew everyone's business without ever being part of it. And he was scared. Scared men make deals. Ruth didn't confront him. She invited him. A note delivered by hand. Midnight. Back room. Come alone. Eli came shaking. He expected Leon. He found Ruth. You weren't supposed to be here, he stammered. I know, Ruth said. That's why I am. He tried to justify it fast. Outsiders pressing him. Brooklyn offering protection. Italians hinting at peace if he cooperated. I didn't want blood, he said. I just wanted to live. Ruth nodded. I believe you. That surprised him. Then she leaned in. And that's why you can't. His face collapsed. Not fear. Relief. Because running was over. Ruth didn't threaten him. She gave him a choice. Go to Leon and confess. Publicly. And Harlem would remember him as a man who told the truth too late. Or disappear quietly. With enough money to start over somewhere far enough that his name meant nothing. What about you? He asked weakly. What do you get? Ruth stood. I get Harlem intact. Eli chose disappearance. By morning, his ledgers were on Leon's desk. That's how Leon learned the truth. Not from whispers, not from betrayal, but from Ruth placing evidence in his hands like a verdict. He went looking for her immediately. Found her at dawn, standing on a rooftop overlooking the neighborhood. You should have told me, he said. She didn't turn. You would have tried to save him, she replied. And saving him would have cost us everything. Leon was quiet. Then, you risked yourself. She finally faced him. I risked us. That was the difference. Word spread fast. Not that Eli was gone, but why? And something shifted again. Fear didn't return to Leon. It didn't stay with Ruth either. It settled into the streets, where it belonged. Because everyone understood now. Harlem wasn't protected by strength alone. It was protected by someone willing to make choices no one else could carry. And that someone was Ruth. The warning didn't come as a threat. It came as an offer. That's how Ruth knew it was real. A messenger found her just before sunset. Not one of Leon's men. Not one of Harlem's usual runners. Too clean. Too careful. He handed her a folded note and walked away without waiting. 3 words inside. Midnight. 1 decision. No signature. No address. She didn't show it to Leon. That was the first sacrifice. By nightfall, Harlem felt different. Not tense, hushed. Stores closed early. Corners emptied. The air carried the weight of something people didn't want to name. Ruth walked through alone, coat buttoned, steps measured. The address revealed itself without asking. An old warehouse near the river. Lights on upstairs. 2 guards at the door, not Harlem muscle. Outside power. Inside, a table waited. So, did the man behind it. He stood when Ruth entered. Older, expensive suit. Eyes that had seen empires fold and learned patience from it. We've heard a lot about you, he said. Ruth didn't sit. You didn't invite me here for conversation. He smiled. No, I invited you for clarity. He gestured to a chair anyway. She ignored it. Leon Crown is a problem, the man said calmly. Not because he's violent, because he's loyal. Loyal men don't bend. Ruth said nothing. You, on the other hand, he continued, are practical. There it was. The insult disguises respect. We don't want Harlem, he said. We want peace, stability, predictability. And Leon prevents that? Ruth asked. He inspires people, the man replied. That's worse. Then he placed a photograph on the table. Leon, leaving a building Ruth recognized, taken hours earlier. Her jaw tightened just slightly. Here's the offer, the man said gently. You step aside. Let us remove him quietly. No war, no retaliation. Harlem stays untouched. Ruth's voice was steady. And if I say no? The man folded his hands. Then Harlem burns before dawn. Silence stretched, not dramatic, clinical. Ruth finally pulled out a chair and sat. This was the second sacrifice. You think killing him ends this, she said. It doesn't. No, the man agreed, but it simplifies it. She looked at the photo again. Leon had always been obvious, loud in loyalty, visible in power. She had been the opposite, invisible, precise, replaceable on purpose. You chose the wrong leverage, Ruth said quietly. The man raised an eyebrow. Oh, you think I'll choose him, she continued, because you think love makes people reckless. She leaned forward, but love is what taught me restraint. He studied her now. Real study. Leon is Harlem's heart, Ruth said. Kill him and it bleeds. That's unavoidable. No, Ruth replied. What's unavoidable is what replaces him. She stood. You kill Leon. Harlem won't look for another king. She tapped the table. It'll look for a reckoning. The man sighed. You're stalling. No, Ruth said. I'm deciding. This was the third sacrifice. She turned to leave. Midnight. The man called after her. Either way. Ruth walked back into Harlem under a sky that felt too low. She found Leon where she knew she would, at the same rooftop, watching the neighborhood like it might disappear if he blinked. She stood beside him. They came for you, she said. He didn't ask who. Figures, he replied. They offered me peace. He laughed softly. And Ruth closed her eyes. I took it. Leon turned. Really turned. What? Not their peace, she clarified. Mine. She handed him a bag. Inside, cash, papers, a route out of the city, clean, untraceable. You leave tonight, she said, before midnight. Leon stared at her like he'd never seen her before. You're choosing them over me? Ruth shook her head. I'm choosing Harlem over both of us. His voice broke. This is my home. So is mine, she replied. That's why I can't let them use you to burn it. Understanding hit him slowly. You're staying. Yes. And they'll come back. Yes. Leon grabbed her arm. You'll die. Maybe, she said gently. But Harlem won't. This was a final sacrifice. Leon left before dawn. No goodbye to the streets. No last stand. Just absence. By morning, rumors spread that Crown had vanished. By nightfall, outsiders pulled back. The threat dissolved, not because it was defeated, but because its target was gone. And Ruth remained, not as a queen, not as a myth, but as something far more dangerous. A woman who had already lost everything she loved, and therefore had nothing left to be threatened with. Harlem didn't fall apart after Leon Crown disappeared. That surprised everyone. No riots, no bloodbath, no collapse. Instead, something quieter happened. The streets adjusted. Corners learned new names. Businesses found new protectors. The numbers kept running. Music still poured out of basements and open windows. Life continued, but with a strange absence, like a missing heartbeat no one spoke about. People asked questions softly. Where did Leon go? Why did the outsiders suddenly back off? Why did the pressure disappear overnight? No one had answers, except Ruth. She stayed exactly where she had always been, unseen. She never took Leon's seat, never claimed his name, never wore the crown people expected her to pick up. She worked from behind doors, through quiet conversations, sealed envelopes, favors traded without witnesses. Harlem didn't need another king. It needed balance, and Ruth became that balance. Years passed. New crews rose and fell. Big names came through Harlem trying to test its boundaries. Every single one of them failed. Not violently, not dramatically. They failed because doors stayed closed, because alliances never formed, because information reached the wrong ears at the right time. Harlem became expensive to fight, too complicated, too united. Outsiders eventually learned the lesson. There were no leaders left to kill, only consequences. In the late 1950s, a young journalist started asking the wrong questions. He had heard the old stories. The night the pressure lifted, the year Harlem stopped being hunted, the name Leon Crown and the silence that followed it. He tracked Ruth down after months of resistance. She was older now, hair threaded with gray, eyes still sharp. He expected confession. He got perspective. Leon wasn't erased, she told him. He was preserved. The journalist frowned. You sent him away. Yes. So you chose power over love? Ruth almost smiled. No, she said. I chose timing. She poured tea. Men like Leon are symbols. Symbols attract violence. I removed the symbol so the meaning could survive. The journalist leaned forward. You're saying you saved Harlem by letting him go? Ruth corrected him. I saved Harlem by refusing to let it worship a man instead of future. She never confirmed where Leon went. She never denied saving him either. The journalist published the article anyway. It barely caused a ripple, because legends are easier to swallow than truths. But Harlem changed after that piece. People began to talk differently, not about kings, about codes, about loyalty without spectacle, power without noise. And slowly, quietly, Ruth's name began to surface, not as a ruler, but as a constant. She's always been there. She knows things. Nothing moves unless she allows it. Ruth never corrected it. By the time she passed, there was no funeral announcement, no procession, just a closed storefront and a neighborhood that felt exposed. Only then did Harlem realize what it had lost. Years later, a man returned, older, thinner, walking with a limp. Leon Crown stood at the edge of Harlem and watched from a distance. He didn't step back in. Didn't need to. He saw kids playing safely on streets that once ran red. Businesses owned by locals, corners untouched by outsiders. Harlem had grown past him. That was a victory. He turned away without regret, because some legends aren't meant to stay. They're meant to leave at the right moment. And that was the lesson Ruth left behind. Power isn't loud. Loyalty isn't blind. And sacrifice doesn't always look heroic. Sometimes it looks like walking away so others can stand. If stories of power, loyalty, and betrayal interest you, then you already belong here. Subscribe to stay close to the truth. And comment below, what would you have done in his place? Because every legend leaves a lesson, and not everyone is built to survive it.